and not be afraid to talk about the impacts of race across the board in our communities. So Dr. King would be pleased and on some corners a bit disappointed. But I think he would say, keep on keeping on, job well done. Thank you.
I guess I have the difficult task of following two ministers. My name is Michael Garter. I'm in my 41st year of law enforcement here in this county. I came here as a farm boy from Illinois, wide-eyed, not very experienced, and joined the sheriff's office when it was a very small department. In fact, 5 of us used to patrol the entire coast, and my zone was sometimes Belvedere Road in Martin County. As I grew in law enforcement, I saw inequalities. I saw the lack of enforcement in some neighborhoods. I saw crime being allowed in some neighborhoods and enforced very strictly in others. And I thought, what's wrong with this idea? You know, I think Martin Luther King would want equality across the board. If they're expected to follow the law on some streets that are paved in gold, then they need to follow the law on some streets that are paved in dirt. Because not to do that does not allow those who live on those streets of dirt to meet the level of equality. What we did at the sheriff's office over a long period of time is try to build equality in our neighborhoods. And I remember attending a meeting in Belgrade years ago when Commissioner Taylor was a state representative. And there was hopes of jobs down by building a new water project off State Road 27 and a new hospital. And there was hope for jobs. But the very sad thing is jobs are not available if you do not have skills. And I think I said at that meeting, Priscilla, that, you know what? We can't give jobs. Those companies won't hire if you don't have an education and if you don't have a skill. And I would say that our schools need to remember that, you know, not everybody's going to go to college. You know, those careers are important, whether it's in air conditioning, or whether it's in carpentry, or whether it's in road building. Skills that are well-paid, jobs that require skills, being a hairdresser, a barber where I went earlier today. You know, skills that you can make a solid, good living, because maybe school wasn't your thing. I think that we have to work very hard at providing safety and security to all neighborhoods. And that's what I saw. I went to a housing project in this town of 13.5 acres that had been overrun by drug dealers. Drive-by shootings, stolen cars. You know what? And I saw kids in that neighborhood being used by those who sold drugs as the runners and lookouts. Those kids, you know, folks, those kids didn't have a chance. Did not. You know what? To make it out of that environment required great resiliency. And some of that resiliency came by attaching the teachers, like Miss Andrews, or coaches, or folks outside. But then I saw that in some of these neighborhoods there's absolutely no recreation. None. You know, not all the kids can make the football team or the basketball team. There's 5 guys that play on a basketball team. You know, so what do those kids do? And if they don't have an opportunity outside to keep busy in positive things. So we got busy with the county and the commission back. And after a little struggle, and Parks and Recreation back, And now we have 27 neighborhood parks. And the countywide community revitalization team was very, very instrumental, right? I read it. But in getting those parks built, and we fought tooth and nail, because you know what? We wanted those kids to have an opportunity. You know what? And I think that if you give children opportunities, and if you work with their parents, who some have very little or no parenting skills, you know what? And if you look at young girls that are getting pregnant at 12 and 13, because they have no direction and they want belonging. And you take young boys because they don't have belonging. What do? They join gangs. And in this county, we were overrun with gangs. And we worked very hard to break down that gang structure. We worked very hard with our recreation and sports programs, our after-school programs, to give kids a chance of belonging. And I think that when I take that little excerpt out of Martin Luther King's speech, and it says, when this happens, when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, and from every state and every city, and I want to add, and from every neighborhood. You know what, folks? Work together. You know what? We've done very well in some areas, and we're struggling in others, but we're making progress in some of the toughest areas in this county. But it required partnership, arm in arm, hand in hand, working towards that common goal. And I think that's the vision that Martin Luther King had. You know, it doesn't make a difference about color or culture or where you're from. You know, it makes a difference that we all want happiness and serenity for our families.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Hill. And I'd like to thank Commissioner Taylor for inviting me. I'm originally from Kansas City. I'm a recovering banker. I'll refer to myself. Spent 23 years with Bank of America, 14 here in West Palm and Palm Beach County in the state of Florida. Excuse me. And the remainder in Charlotte, North Carolina, and also in London. Excuse me. So actually, I lived here for 14 years, and I decided to come back when I left banking about 3 years ago. This is an incredible community. When Commissioner Taylor asked me to be a part of the panel, she told me she wanted me to talk about economic development. I know you can't throw things at the two police people over here, but when a person starts talking economic development, you have to make sure you're back from the crowd, because everybody has an opinion about what we should be doing and what economic development is. So, nothing I say will be revelatory, nor will it be critical of the efforts that are going on now. It will be more to encourage. But one of the things I'm supposed to do is relate economic development to the dream. And in the last years of Dr. King's life, he expanded his focus to economic justice, and rightly so. If he looked at the progress made since he left us, I think he would be, even though we're not there, I think he would be proud of the political progress. I think he would see tremendous progress in civil rights, even though we're not where we need to be. But on the economic front, I think he would be a little bit concerned that we were behind. And if you look at statistics, you know, bankers and economists, and I'm now not either. But if you look at statistics, Black Americans make up about 12% of the population, but they account for about 21% of unemployment. Black males Unemployment, 19.1%. And projections say that that rate may drop to 10% sometime in 2014 and 2015. The black middle class is also under siege, the middle class overall, but black middle class, and I'll tell you about the gap. The gap in net worth of minority households compared to whites is greater today than it was in 2005. White households have lost about 16% of their net worth in the financial crisis. African American households have lost about 53% of their net worth. Latinos, 66% of their net worth. The day before Dr. King was shot, April 2nd, in Memphis, he was there in support of economic development. He was there to support the sanitation workers for higher pay and better working conditions. On that day, he gave a speech that all of you know about. And so I gave you some pretty frightening, in my opinion, figures. But what he said on that last day was that he had seen the promised land. And he said he wasn't going to get there with us, but he said that he knew we would get there. So to me, what that says is, while we've made progress politically and civically, that we will in fact get there economically. Now, a couple more things to say. Economically, what we suffer from, in my opinion, is everybody has a plan. Anybody that knows me knows that if you talk to me for more than 10 minutes, my conversation is going to shift to economic development. And I've talked to a lot of people about it. I'm passionate about it. I think that that's what I've done all my career as a banker. They say that Christopher Columbus was the first economic developer. And when he left to discover America, he didn't know where he was going. When he got there, he didn't know where he was. And all of that was done on a government grant. So we haven't changed very much. So I kind of close my remarks, and maybe I'll get a chance to talk a little bit more, but anybody I talk to, I say, first of all, we have to be strategic. So if you think about Palm Beach County, there needs to be a broad strategy for economic development in Palm Beach County, and a strategy that connects to that strategy for every other municipality. Because to the extent that that doesn't happen, all those plans become tactical, and success is not something that you can count on. So, and the last thing I'll say is, well, two things to say and I'm done, is that everybody needs to think about it. Like I said, everybody has a definition of economic development. So one of the things we have to do is we have to start being clear and saying the same thing when we talk about economic development. Because when I start a conversation with someone, they say, okay, define it, or they tell me what their definition is. And I've yet to talk to anybody who has been consistent in their definition. So clarity and really thinking through where we're going and what we're going to do we'll get at some of those figures that I talked about. And I'll kind of close my remarks with this last thing, and this is how difficult I think the problem is. If the definition of an economist is someone gets rich explaining to others why they're poor. That's what you hear all the time. I appreciate you having me. I hope we can get into some dialogue around business and economic development later, but I'm absolutely honored to be here. Thank you.